In this alternate 1595, Songhai has not vanished after the Moroccan invasion. Timbuktu still trades, studies, and argues beneath its mud-brick mosques, but the empire survives only because it learned not to fight Morocco on Morocco's terms. Historically, Morocco's firearm-equipped expedition defeated Songhai at Tondibi in 1591. What if Askia Ishaq II had refused a battle he could not win and made the invaders pay for every mile beyond the Sahara? This is a speculative timeline. Avoiding defeat might preserve a state, but it cannot restore every lost route or erase internal rivalries. Could a smaller, reorganized Songhai have faced the later pressures of Atlantic trade and colonial expansion? In the 16th century, Songhai was the largest state in the western Sudan. Gao governed a Niger-centered empire, whose influence reached the Sahara, the inland delta, and commercial links with neighboring regions. Gold, salt, cola, cloth, books, and people moved through its markets. Timbuktu, Gao, and Janneh were commercial and scholarly centers, though their interests did not always align with the imperial court. Across the Sahara, Sultan Ahmad al-Mansur of Morocco sought revenue, prestige, and influence over the salt and gold trade. His state had recently survived war with Portugal and possessed artillery and firearms Songhai could not easily match. In 1590, al-Mansur sent Judar Pasha south with a small but gunpowder-equipped expedition. The march across the Sahara was brutal. The force arrived weakened, yet its weapons gave it a devastating advantage in a set-piece battle. Askia Ishaq II inherited a kingdom weakened by succession conflict and contested authority. He could summon many warriors, but no numerical advantage could make cavalry immune to cannon and arquebus fire. Judar's march cost men, animals, and supplies. By the time the expedition neared the Niger, its commanders needed food, water, and a quick victory before the desert behind them became an even greater enemy. Historically, Songhai assembled a huge force at Tondibi and met the invaders directly. In this scenario, a fictional general named Khani brings Ishaq a better assessment of Moroccan weakness before the battle begins. Khani argues for withdrawal, local evacuation, and the denial of water, grain, and forage along the Moroccan route. It is a painful strategy. Villages lose harvests, merchants lose stock, and chiefs fear the court is abandoning them. Ishaq accepts the plan. Rather than charge into gunfire at Tondibi, Songhai disperses its field army and prepares a mobile resistance. From this point, the timeline is speculative. Judar's force enters a landscape stripped of easy supplies. Some wells are guarded or blocked, markets have moved, and river settlements refuse to feed the invaders. But Songhai civilians bear much of the hardship too. Moroccan morale drops as promised gold fails to appear. The army can occupy a road or a town, but every extra day lengthens its supply line and increases conflict among officers, mercenaries, and camp followers. Khani's mobile forces harass isolated foragers and scouts, then vanish into river crossings and scrubland. These actions delay the expedition. They do not destroy it in one heroic encounter. Judar briefly reaches Gao and later Timbuktu, but finds revenue difficult to collect and authority even harder to impose. Holding famous cities is not the same as governing the river networks that sustain them. Reports to al-Mansur describe a costly campaign with uncertain spoils. Morocco can send orders across the desert, but it cannot cheaply replace every lost animal, weapon, or experienced soldier. Ishaq preserves a core army south of the main river cities, but his authority remains fragile. Local leaders support resistance only if the court shares food, cattle, and decision-making, rather than demanding sacrifice from them alone. In this scenario, resistance continues long enough to change Morocco's calculation. By 1594, al-Mansur authorizes a costly partial withdrawal and leaves only limited positions near the Niger, rather than trying to rule all of Songhai directly. Songhai does not return unchanged. Ishaq's government re-enters Gao and Timbuktu gradually, negotiates with urban elites, and restores river traffic where it can. Recovery is uneven and contested. The invasion proves that firearms cannot be ignored. Songhai seeks imported weapons, repair knowledge, and a small number of trained gunners, but shortages and cost prevent a rapid transformation into a gunpowder superpower. Neighboring rulers reassess Songhai's survival. Around the turn of the century, envoys from Bornu and Mossi states discuss trade, frontier security, and the risks of entanglement. not a single united anti-Moroccan bloc. Over the next decade, trans-Saharan trade recovers in some corridors, while river trade and local food markets become more important. Stability is valuable, but merchants still choose routes according to risk and profit. Ishaq's longer survival does not guarantee a smooth dynasty. Later succession disputes force provincial governors, scholars, and military leaders to bargain over taxation and command, limiting how centralized the restored state can become. In this timeline, a fictional Sahelian compact creates limited agreements for caravan security, river crossings, and mediation with selected neighbors. It is a network of interests, not a new empire that absorbs every state around it. Timbuktu scholarship recovers unevenly. Manuscripts, schools, astronomy, law, and medicine remain important, but patronage depends on political stability and the wealth of merchants, rather than on a guaranteed golden age. By the late 17th century, Atlantic coastal powers are expanding their networks. Songhai leaders cannot dictate the coast, but they can regulate some inland corridors and choose when to trade, delay, or redirect caravans. The result is a more resilient inland state, not an isolated fortress. Its leaders balance Moroccan remnants, neighboring powers, merchants, and changing Atlantic demand with tools that often fall short of their ambitions. By the mid-18th century, this alternate Songhai is a durable, Niger-Bend state, not the restored giant of the 16th century. Its influence rests on river commerce, negotiated alliances, and the ability to survive more than it conquers. Small trained units with repaired, imported firearms guard key crossings, but most security still depends on local militias, cavalry, river pilots, and agreements with communities that refuse permanent central control. Knowledge moves through many channels. Timbuktu scholars preserve Islamic and local traditions, while selectively engaging new medical, agricultural, and navigational ideas brought by merchants and travelers. As Atlantic trade changes West Africa, the state cultivates internal grain markets, river transport, and craft production. It cannot escape outside demand, but diversification gives local communities more than one route to survival. The Atlantic slave trade remains a devastating regional reality, and Songhai's survival does not erase coercion or displacement. In this scenario, court policy focuses on protecting specific river communities and trade routes, with uneven results and no moral miracle. When European powers intensify their scramble for Africa in the late 19th century, they encounter a state with institutions, diplomacy, and hard terrain. This changes the cost of conquest, but does not make colonial pressure disappear. Some European powers accept treaties and commercial concessions. Others support rivals or demand more access. The empire retains meaningful autonomy in parts of the Niger-Bend, while frontier regions experience debt, conflict, and outside interference. Into the early 20th century, this surviving state faces drought cycles, factional rebellions, and the challenge of adapting administration to railways, telegraphs, and new forms of commerce without surrendering all local control. Its legacy is not that Songhai stops history. It is that one avoided battle preserves more choices for later generations, choices about learning, trade, alliance, and resistance in a West Africa shaped by many powers. One fictional decision at Tondibi could not make an empire invulnerable, but it might have changed the terms on which the Niger-Bend faced the centuries ahead. This has been Historic's Vault,